I've always been conscious in my own way without labeling of human rights and how we treat each other. And so that interest here in United States, the Muslim community was new or is new. So I'm an American Muslim, and I know we have such huge misunderstandings among different sects, different religions, although basically the bottom line is that they all speak for justice and equality.
Dr. Nazir Khaja was born in Hyderabad, a state located in the south-central region of India. Growing up, he's always embraced all cultures, but understood that sentiment was not felt by everyone.
People dwell on differences and this whole process of othering, which is very dangerous. You always sort of, take a group and make them the others, and you are you. And that again creates that much of inequality and prompts you to do such illogical, inhuman sort of behavior and all of that.
And Dr. Khaja is proud of his Indian heritage and to be able to represent the United States as an American citizen.
I believe in the American values and in the Constitution and what it stands for, and that is the greatness of America.
And as a practicing gastroenterologist, he gets to interact with people from all over the world. And for Dr. Khaja, it's never been just about the medicine.
Medicine is an enormous specialty. It is just not about disease, it's about people. That is the most significant part of it. And I always talk to my medical students that medicine is just not science. It's an art, it's a discipline, it's a religion. Patient is not a disease. And it creates that much of empathy, feeling, and a number of other sentiments. And you feel more and more committed, and you see the world in a much more expansive way than this narrow vision of yours that you have to pass, you have to get money, you have to succeed. Yes, all that. But you are responsible for a person who's lying in bed, trusts you, gives you the full confidence that you have for his or her safety and well-being. So you have to deliver.
Although he's lived in the United States since the early 1960s, it was his upbringing in India that really developed his passion for people. How was life over there?
It was nice. For me, it was a state which was multi-ethnic, multi-religious, so there were no ethnic tensions. We lived very peacefully with each other, respected each other's rights, we observed festivals of each other, so there was a lot of peace and harmony. And that model left a very deep impression on me as I was growing up. My parents were from middle class. My father had a very responsible position. My mother was the motivating sort of force, though she didn't have any formal education, but she made it a mission that we all were educated, and all of my family is quite highly educated. So.
But practicing medicine wasn't always his fate.
Well, it just so happened that I was initially not interested in doing medicine, which I thought was going to be very difficult for me, since I was participating in cricket, which is a very well-known sort of a sport there. Compared to as baseball is to the United States, and cricket is almost a religion now. So, if you played at a certain level, you become popular. You have a lot of friends, so it reinforces you. So you want to think of remaining in that sphere. So I was doing that, and I almost played at a high level. And after I graduated, the United States had a system by which foreign medical graduates can come in for training purposes in this country by taking an exam for foreign medical graduates. I go there and take the exam, and so did a whole bunch of people my classmates who were much more studious and had ranking in the class. So the results come back, and guess what? I passed and they didn't. I found out which hospitals were offering training opportunities. So I picked and I wrote to them. So I wrote to several, but they accepted me. So I again wrote back to them and I said, if you send my ticket and take away from my salary, I would come. So they were very happy. So this was in Rhode Island. So I came to Rhode Island, and the salary at that time for first year interns or residents was $500. So they were taking $250 from my salary for the whole ticket, and this went on. And then I left Rhode Island and went to Boston and trained, and that was the part of my training. It was obviously a transition from that culture to here, and that discipline or that way of practicing medicine to this way of practicing medicine. So there was so much stress out there. But then, as time evolved, and I met so many good people here in the United States, which made it easy. There were nurses, there were other people who saw me as a stranger and who was struggling, and they would be nice to me, and that also reinforced the idea that this is a great country and you have an opportunity, and then that leads you to the question of paying back to this country what you have taken from.
But working through those harsh winters never got any easier.
One time I had just gotten home after putting in a day's work at the hospital about 6:30, 7 o'clock. I was sitting in front of TV, and the TV, there was a travel advisory all over. There's a big storm coming and all of that. And sure enough, at 8:30 I get a phone call from the hospital saying that there's an emergency and you better come. So I drive out from where I was living to the hospital and get on the freeway. No one on the freeway, not one car, and I'm driving slowly, but I can hardly see a few yards ahead of me. So then all of a sudden I'm seeing a red light in my rear view mirror, and it's a police car. So I pulled over very gradually. The policeman comes out and he says, "What's the matter?" He looks at me, and he's a strange-looking guy driving. So this must be a foreigner. "What's the matter? Do you know English?" So I said, "Yes." So he said, "What are you doing here?" So then I showed him my badge. "Oh," he said, "So?" So I said, "I'm going to the hospital, and this is the story." So he said, "Okay, doc, I'll drive about 10 yards in front of me slowly. I'll get you to the hospital, but don't come out of the hospital."
It wasn't long before Dr. Khaja opened himself up to opportunities on the West Coast, and in the 1980s, he made the move to California. And since then, he's worked at several hospitals, including Providence Little Company of Mary Medical Center and Torrance Memorial Medical Center.
Come New Year's time, I had an apartment in Redondo Beach, right on the esplanade and the ocean. I go down, and the beach is lined with all beautiful people in bikinis. I took some pictures and sent them a Happy New Year card. They just became so furious. They said, "How could you do it to us?" So anyway, so that was one of the things to come to the West Coast for, because I think climate-wise, we are so blessed here. So.
And with his own practice, Dr. Khaja gets to give back by serving the members of the South Bay community.
I tell you, what you said is quite correct. You will be very surprised, especially medicine, which is it's a people-oriented profession. I really learn a lot from just ordinary people in terms of, it was the opportunity. It was just not economic opportunity, but all the other kind of interest and work that I can do freely without being distracted if I'm overseas with other factors and a number of things. The whole idea that I see America as a land of opportunity, a land of bridges.
Dr. Khaja has always stayed very active in the Muslim community, and being in the United States since the 1960s, he's experienced firsthand the effects of the civil rights era. Khaja was deeply moved and inspired by the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, and he set on his own journey to further improve relations among all people.
I met Reverend Jackson. He was at that time running for U.S. presidency, and he came to the United States. So I invited him over to the Islamic Center to talk about how he saw, this whole issue in America of race, politics, this and that. And I was, very much helped in my thinking in understanding the dynamics here. So I have been with Reverend Jackson throughout this whole period, from there on, doing the civil rights work, working on bringing different groups together, have traveled abroad for prisoner releases, have met various leaders who have been maligned or who were doing things that we didn't believe in.
And when we come back, find out how Dr. Khaja's work with Reverend Jesse Jackson led to several peace negotiations around the world.
Palm trees, coastline, craft brews. Yep, this is Southern California. But this is Torrance. Have you ever driven to a whole other city just for a bowl of ramen? Because if you haven't, that's about to change. Have you ever been to a beach that feels so much like your own private beach that you're like, where has this been all my life? Welcome, my friends, to Torrance Beach. So private, you hadn't even heard of it. Have you ever been to a mall that had literally 2.7 million square feet of shopping? Run, don't walk to Del Amo Fashion Center. And get this, Torrance is the actual epicenter of the South Bay's craft brew industry. I guess you could say the brews are just craftier here. We also have a farmer's market that's just as much about the people as it is about the food. And even our museum scene is the best of the South Bay. All this just 15 minutes from LAX. You'll come for the city, stay for the experience, and leave as a friend. So, are you in?
Welcome back to Faces of Torrance. If you're just tuning in, we're talking to Dr. Nazir Khaja, a gastroenterologist from Torrance who has a passion for people. His work does not stop even after the white coat comes off. Dr. Khaja met with Reverend Jesse Jackson in the 80s, which contributed to many of his humanitarian efforts. He became a member of the Interfaith Peace Delegation to the Middle East and traveled to countries like Syria, Israel, and Lebanon, to name a few, on a quest to spread world peace.
They established a group called the Next Step Commission. There were 5 of us. I was from different faiths or different leadership. So I was the only Muslim, and we met periodically and regularly over the year. And then out of that activity came the Center for Faith and Public Life, which is a big sort of organization now in Washington, D.C. So I was one of the founding members, and now I'm emeritus. I've served the term and all of that. So those activities, interacting with others, thinking, shaping, reshaping, and all of that process.
His relief efforts continue in Indonesia, where he helped bring medical supplies after the 2004 tsunami. And with all the missions and all the leaders he's worked with, his goal stays the same.
Well, I definitely wanted to, especially for the American Muslim community, I wanted them to learn through my experience and the experience of these people who are humanitarians, who are working for a cause. So that is, so at the Islamic Center, we established these conversations with other groups, with the, Christians, Jews, everyone. So the whole process became a more comfortable and a more productive. I think it's the biggest challenge is to break down the barriers, somehow get the communication going, dispelling the distrust, make that a common cause for us, and all these partitions which have divided from gender to sex to this, and really dwelling on these differences and leaving the task at hand unattended of reforming society, giving people decent living. So those things, so you have to work very hard to do that.
Do you think that it'll ever get better?
Oh, you have to hope. I mean, that I believe also. That comes to me from Reverend Jackson, when he speaks towards the end of, he usually asks the audience participation, and one of his battle cries is, "Keep hope alive." So I just say, "Keep hope alive." Yeah.
Dr. Nazir Khaja was presented with the 2017 Visionary Leadership Award by Reverend Jesse Jackson through the Rainbow Push Coalition, a social justice organization founded by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. himself. Dr. Khaja is committed to the peace activities and building bridges among various faiths and communities. He is a sought-after speaker on Islam, Muslim, and Pakistan relations, and continues to write articles for various publications related to interfaith relations. But at the same time, Dr. Khaja views his work as a gastroenterologist as a way to give back to the country he calls home, a place that has given him so many opportunities. He gets to serve the South Bay community, but on a national level, he serves everyone. For Faces of Torrance, I'm your host, Jesse Pierre, speaking to ordinary people doing extraordinary things.